Hey everyone, off the Mike Sports Network here. Big news, which means we got to bring back some Browns thoughts here. Um, it is official. Tommy Rees, who was the tight ends coach last season for the Cleveland Browns, was formerly actually the Alabama offensive coordinator, and then prior to that, Notre Dame offensive coordinator, former star quarterback at Notre Dame. Um, and he's younger than me. I'm 35. Tommy Rees is in his early 30s, and Nick Saban's spoken very highly of him. Like, I understand to some degree why Browns fans are upset that the Browns didn't go outside of the building for this hire. But here's the reality of the situation. Mike Vrabel wanted this guy to be his offensive coordinator in New England. Uh, if Bill Belichick was not hired as the head coach in North Carolina, Tommy Rees was going to be the head coach there. So before you guys run this thing down because it's in-house, this offense stunk, Tommy Rees coached the tight ends on this team. And there was not a whole hell of a lot to coach in the tight end room. David Njoku was hurt the whole season. Blake Whiteheart, who I've never heard of, Jordan Akins, there was nothing there. So this guy's got some bright ideas. Clearly, Kevin Stefanski respects him enough to say, hey, we're going to give him, the ability to be the offensive coordinator. I would fully expect Kevin Stefanski to be the play caller again. I think this was after the bye, they went to Ken Dorsey. That was to prove a point. That this whole season was a sham. And catering the offense to Deshaun Watson was not going to work. So I like this hire because it's a young, bright offensive mind who clearly was going to be a commodity. He was in your building. You don't let him get out of the building. You give him a reason to stay. And, hey, if he does well, you're going to have to hire somebody else. I would rather be in that position rather than, some people are saying, oh, it's a terrible situation. It could be a lame duck situation. Maybe Clint Kubiak, who I thought was a natural fit as well, didn't want to come here. I have no reason to believe that. I think they were like, hey, we've got a ready-made in-house candidate who's young and talented and has been successful wherever he has been as an offensive coordinator. When he was at Notre Dame, clearly Nick Saban sought him out because he was like, damn, this kid's good. I want to have him in my building. And so that leads me to my next point, because the big picture of now the offensive staff is really, there might be some more changes. Bubba Ventrone, the special teams coach, might be gone. I think Jim Schwartz will be back. There could be some more changes within this team, but offensive line coach has been changed. They've already moved on to that. They got a former head coach from Rice and Mike Bloomgren, which is a great hire. He's got experience, and I think a lot of people generally really like that hire, and it lines up more with the Kevin Stefanski, system of how they run things. And the Andy Dickerson thing was just a disaster. It just didn't work out with Ken Dorsey as well. So yeah, I would imagine there might be some more changes coming. I don't know if Deuce Staley will come back as the running backs coach, and some of these other positions will be changed. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But now comes the question of, what are the Browns going to do with that number 2 overall pick? And I have seen so many people in the last handful of days say they've got to take a quarterback. They've got to take a quarterback. They have to take a quarterback at number 2. I don't think they do. And everybody's going to come after me and say, Mike, what the hell are you talking about? They absolutely need a quarterback. Okay, first of all, they need a quarterback. That doesn't mean that they need to draft one, at least in the first 2 picks, because frankly, I like Cam Ward. I would prefer Cam Ward if I was taking a quarterback up in the top 2. I don't necessarily think there is a quarterback worthy of taking up at that high. And if it comes down to the fact that if Cam Ward goes 1 to the Titans, which is very possible, then comes the need or maybe the likelihood that they have to look into Shedeur Sanders. And I would not touch Shedeur Sanders at all. I was initially warmed over to the idea. The more and more I have thought about it and just analyzed and broke this down, I don't think this is going to work because, number one, I just don't think Coach Prime is going to allow his son to go to Cleveland, Ohio, where quarterback's dreams go to die. Okay? I just don't think that Shedeur is going to end up in Cleveland because either the Sanders family is going to force his way out, or frankly, I just don't know if the Browns are going to want to put up with another bit of drama. So if it were me, I would trade down, maybe as close to number 2 as you can. Giants are right behind you. Patriots also. I would trade down. And whether they want to trade up for Travis Hunter, or if they want to get Shedeur Sanders, and then the Browns can move down, get extra picks, which they need, and take Abdul Carter from Penn State, who is probably considered one of the top 2 or 3 best players in this draft. Travis Hunter is probably going to be considered a top guy. And then beyond that, it's up to for interpretation. We're still really early in the process. So I don't think the Browns should take a quarterback in the top 2. I think they should. The number one thing that they should do is, if they stay there, take the best player available, which would be Abdul Carter, in my opinion. If they trade back, hey, trade back. And if you can't get Abdul Carter, accumulate picks, take the best guy on the board. Okay? Just do that. If it's Ashton Janty, I would love that. It might be a little bit too high to take him up in the top 5, but I would absolutely welcome that as well. Now, what this Tommy Rees hire signals to me is, I think that the Browns are really going to think about not taking a quarterback in the top 2. And I don't think that's a bad decision in the slightest. I think that's actually the right decision. What they ought to consider is, I've heard a lot of buzz around Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart may not be available. The guy that they've got to target, because clearly I've been saying this, they've got to find a bridge quarterback, whether that's Sam Darnold, whether that, even though I don't think Sam Darnold's a franchise quarterback, I've done a video about that, whether that's Kirk Cousins for a year or 2, I would totally welcome that as a possibility. Don't even get me started. I'm not even touching Aaron Rodgers if he's available. That's a terrible idea for the Browns. But get a bridge option to, somebody, and it seems like the more and more I think about it, Kirk Cousins probably makes the most sense. And that's not going to light the world on fire, but Kirk Cousins has been to the playoffs. Kirk Cousins can perform. He had a season this year where he was coming off an Achilles injury, and he struggled down the stretch. Maybe in a system that he knows and knows how to run, like he did in Minnesota under Kevin Stefanski as the offensive coordinator, he was very successful there. Maybe that leads to some semblance of success and good quarterback play. So I think Kirk Cousins is the option. And if you're looking for something in the draft, because the Browns are going to take a quarterback in this draft, absolutely, because Deshaun Watson's not going to make it, is probably not going to play at all in 2025. DTR is not an option anymore. Jameis Winston's not going to be back. And I don't think they'll bring Bailey Zappi back. So literally this whole quarterback room needs to be overhauled. So they'll bring in a veteran option, and then they'll draft somebody. Again, I don't think there's somebody worth taking at the top of this draft. I like Cam Ward. I'd be okay with it. I'm almost kind of lukewarm to it. But the guy that they will target, in my eyes, based off of this hire that they made with Tommy Rees and elevating him to the offensive coordinator position, watch out for Jalen Milroe at Alabama, for him to be the potential Browns quarterback of the future. And Jalen Milroe has been very inconsistent, but the flashes that he has had of great quarterback play is brilliant. Think of that LSU game. This guy is an elite athlete, kind of inconsistent throwing the ball. He needs seasoning. So if you bring in a bridge veteran option like a Kirk Cousins and say bring him in for a year, maybe 2, and you bring him in on a short-term option, that gives Tommy Rees potentially enough time to work with a guy who he had a lot of success with in 1 year with Jalen Milroe. They went all the way to the national semifinals. Don't get me started. Everybody at Florida State who's mad about that being a result, Alabama made it in. Okay, that's not what this is about. But the reason why Alabama was in that spot was because Jalen Milroe clicked with Tommy Rees. So I would watch for that. And that's the bigger picture thing coming out of this, is I don't think that the Browns are going to look for a quarterback unless they absolutely immediately fall in love with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And there's really a strong possibility that the Tennessee Titans take one of those 2, and I think it's probably going to be Cam Ward. A lot of people seemingly are really mixed whether it's, the personality, whether it's like, kind of nothing really jumps off the page with Shador, and also the Deion Sanders element and some of this nonsense with, the Cowboys potentially getting into the mix and Shador and Deion being a package deal. I just don't think that's realistic. So for me, the options, I think the Browns are going to, in the first round, they're going to probably look best player available. I don't think it necessarily has to be a quarterback. And these Browns grifter accounts or these fanboys who, and they know who they are, who are just going to light the world fire. We have to take a quarterback because, Jaden Daniels. Guys, this is not a good quarterback class. This isn't. This isn't. Just because they have a flashy name and they almost went to the Heisman Trophy or they played at Colorado, that doesn't mean that they're worth a top 2 pick in this draft. That was a historically great quarterback class last season with Caleb Williams at 1, Jaden Daniels at 2, Drake May at 3, Bo Nix, and also we don't even know about J.J. McCarthy. And I've seen multiple scouts like a Daniel Jeremiah who have said J.J. McCarthy, if he would have stayed at Michigan for another season, he would have been the number 1 pick in this draft. That tells you how bad. J.J. McCarthy went 10th. He went 10th. I think it was the 4th or 5th quarterback taken in last year's draft. He'd be the number 1 quarterback in this draft, the number 1 pick. That tells you how bad this crop is. And like I said, I think the world of Cam Ward. He's a great kid, very talented, overcame a lot, went to multiple schools to get success, almost won the Heisman this year. I don't know if he's the answer at quarterbacks. So just because there's a quarterback there doesn't mean you have to do it. And seeing what transpired on Tuesday with the elevation of Tommy Rees to be the offensive coordinator means 2 things. Number 1, Kevin Stefanski's taking back his offense, which is completely the right thing to do. And then number 2, I would keep my eyes on a quarterback in a potential day 2, day 3 range. I think Jalen Milroe is probably going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round, it seems like. And considering what Tommy Rees was able to do with him, I would keep my eyes peeled and be more open to the possibility of a bridge option into Jalen Milroe. That's much better than taking a quarterback 1 or 2 that you're going to probably have to start right away. And I think that would be a disaster, just a disaster. So those are my Browns thoughts for now. I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.